Hey there, I am Christie Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of 2 six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well then you're in the right place. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. This is Christie Ruffino, and boy, do we have an amazing show for you today. Have you followed our show? If not, please head over to iTunes and make sure you do that, because following is a new way that iTunes has established to keep our shows strong and gauge our listener activity. But today, I've got 2 pages of notes for this guest today. I met her recently, and since I met her on a cruise in January, just a few months ago. And since then, I've had a few phone calls with her. I've kind of stalked her on social media, and I'm just amazed at what this woman has been able to do in a short period of time. And so you're going to get to meet Amanda Abala. And she is an award-winning content creator, a keynote speaker, and a business coach who specializes in helping business owners activate their persuasion prowess. Her clients go from hating sales and marketing to achieving 90% close rates and closing multiple 5-figure deals. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Huntington Post, Business Insider, Univision, and many, many more. Her current work focuses on helping 6- and 7-figure businesses streamline, systematize, and automate their sales process so they can make more money in less time and with less stress. And best of all, Amanda's given us an amazing resource to share with our audience. And so not only are you going to be able to connect with her, learn from her on her YouTube channel and all of the other places she's sharing fabulous content, but she is going to be giving our audience her best sales scripts ever. So stay tuned to the show. Wait till the very end. You'll learn how to get her free gift, and you'll learn how to access our gift vault to get her information and her gift, as well as gifts from many of our other past guests who are just have been so generous with us. So I encourage you to stay loyal, keep thinking positive, keep harvesting your story, like getting your story out there, because your story makes a big impact, just like the story that Amanda's going to share shortly. And I will see you next week as we continue to interview amazing guests. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you soon. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. I am so excited for you to meet my guest today, Amanda. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking to your audience about, sales, one of my favorite topics, but definitely not most people's favorite topic.
Selfishly, this is a show that I've been anticipating. We met about a month ago on the marketers cruise, and we were able to have a great dinner together. I learned a little bit about you, but we didn't really have a chance to dive in. And so we had a call a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I've got to get her on my show. So here we are, and I like just sales is a topic that people either love it or hate it, and you love it. But I'm sure you didn't love it initially, or maybe you did. I don't know, but like I'd love to hear your story on how you got in this niche and how you got to be so good at it.
So it's actually really funny because I joke around that I was in sales for almost a decade and I didn't know that I was in sales. So believe it or not, when I was 20 years old, I affectionately call this my first sales job. I needed a job in between semesters. I answered some like weird Craigslist ad in online and went to like some office in Miami Beach. And they're like, hey, this is for like an environmental fundraiser or something. And I'm like, I need a job. Cool. So they gave me like 2 days of training, like, here's how you talk to people, and just sent me out on the field. So I spent a whole summer on Miami Beach at the age of 20 asking strangers on the street for money.
Oh boy. And Miami? Holy cow, you didn't
In
get shot?
Miami, on Miami Beach. On Miami Beach, yeah, and all over Miami, really, not just Miami Beach. So that was my first sales job. Then I would end up in teaching English as a second language, which I didn't realize was essentially sales. And then I would end up as a recruiter, recruiting for salespeople and retail managers and things like that. And this and recruiting is sales. That's all it is. But I had no idea because nobody told me.
Well, you know what? On that note, so much of what we do is sales. I mean, even as a mother, we've got to talk our children into doing what we want them to do. And, sales is a part of our life.
Sales is everything, literally everything, which is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it. Because I'm like, if you want anything in life, you better learn how to sell and you better learn how to negotiate. That's what you need to learn how to do. Marriage is negotiations, long-term partnerships are negotiations, business is negotiations, family is
Yes.
negotiations, kids, teachers, all of it is a negotiation. So I didn't know that back then though, because again, I had no idea that I was selling. So at that point, I was in the personal finance space because it was, 2010, other side of the recession. It took me 6 months to find a job after college. I got really intrigued by money, and I was like, man, I better go like learn this money stuff. So, and one of the things that I would learn is like always have multiple streams of income. So I was a recruiter during the day, but I was starting like a whole freelance writing, marketing, content business on the side
Mhm.
of that, pitching banks. And again, I had no idea that I was selling. No clue. It wasn't until I wanted to start, people were starting to ask me to coach them, like, hey, how did you build this? Or can you teach me how to do this? Or I started getting a lot of brain pickers in the DMs, as I'm sure a lot of people struggle with the brain pickers. And I'm like, oh, snap, I think I got something here. And then I hired a coach. I think this was 2012, 2013. And she goes, you're selling all day long, right? And I'm like, "Huh, what? What do you mean I'm selling all day long?" I had no idea that I was doing it. I was just like naturally good with people. I was very intuitive with people. I'm a naturally curious person, which is why I have a podcast. And unbeknownst to me, that makes you really good at sales. The
Mm.
problem is that if you have no idea what's going on in a sales process or the skills that are required in each step of the process, then it feels very kind of like, I make money, I don't make money. Like it's almost like this weird, mysterious thing because you can't reverse engineer what you're doing. So I would end up writing for banks for 8 years. And then in 2017, I started transitioning out of that. I started teaching people how I built the first business.
Mm.
And a big part of it became teaching people how to sell. And I actually have this crazy story about how the first time I tried to sell like a coaching packages, I actually got rejected 60 times in 1 month because I was like going based off of my personality, but I had no idea how to handle objections and close. I didn't even know
Right.
what part of the sales process I was in, and no one had ever given me proper training. They were just like, you're good with people, go talk to the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I became obsessed with reverse engineering. Like when it works, why does it work? When it's not working, why isn't it working? And I got a little obsessed. I've trained with some of the best people in the country. And then what happened was I ended up becoming known as one of the best female sales trainers online. I would get results for people like they'd go from nothing to closing $14,000 deals in 2 weeks, all because I
Wow.
was teaching them, how to have these conversations, how to actually communicate with people. And, I combined the energy piece of it, which is like, be naturally curious, be interested in other people.
Mhm.
Don't be weird, just be a human. And I would have to deal with a lot of people's like mindset stuff around sales, but then I would also combine that with skill set. Like, hey,
Okay.
here's how you qualify. Here's how you prospect. Here's how you have this conversation line by line. This is how this conversation goes. And I would role play with our clients line by line so that when
Mm.
they were in sales situations, they were more confident and they wouldn't get lost and they wouldn't get confused and they wouldn't get in their heads. And they just started closing people like crazy
Wow.
left and right just from the practice. So then what happened, and this happened to me, is that business started blowing up so fast that I ran into another problem. And that problem was I was starting to have six-figure months in my
Oh,
business,
right.
but the systems behind the scenes started collapsing. So I knew how to do it, like the in-person organic move people through a sales process, but I was getting to a point where the volume was so much, which is where we help a lot of our clients now, that there was no system, there was no real process. Like I hadn't written any of it down. I didn't have any technology really supporting me in this process. So and then to make matters more interesting, I was going through a lot in the business. My dad was in and out of the hospital at the same time. There was a lot of family stuff going on, health issues while my business was blowing up. I'm having employee issues, all kinds of stuff going on at the same time. And I was like, I need to find a different way of doing this.
Ah,
I
sounds
need to
like it.
find a very different way of doing this. And I became obsessed with systems and processes and automations because I was like, what if I could figure out what I'm doing, like with the people, but find a way of like automating that. So if I get a bunch of leads in one day, or, sometimes we're working hundreds of leads at the same time, and that's where
Mm.
the collapse would happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, but if I'm really good at marketing, obviously, and I'm good at getting in front of people, but I need to be supported on the back end. So I ended up working with coaches and trainers around my mindset of moving from, okay, hustling and producing to building, which is a whole other topic for another time. But also, I became obsessed with trying to piece all these things together. This was a couple years ago. In that process, I ended up meeting my now partner, Justin, who is used to build software and CRMs and all that kind of stuff. And when I said, hey, I'm trying to build like an automated salesperson, I'm
Yeah.
irritated of working with all these marketers that all they do is email autoresponders, but every salesperson knows that's not enough. I'm trying to build like this automated salesperson that like hooks up to the CRM and I can see everything I need to see and the leads are getting worked the way that they're supposed to. He's the only person who understood what I was talking about.
That's great.
And I'd presented it to a bunch of people. So we started experimenting with me and we automate the majority of my sales activity, which we now teach our six-figure clients in a program called Effortless Sales Engine. With our seven-figure clients, we do a lot more consulting for equity and things like that. But what ended up happening was, number one, this was a surprise. I hadn't even thought about this. I slashed my expenses. So
Mm.
it used to cost me like $15,000 a month to run my business the way that I had it before. That was with employees, that was
Wow.
Facebook ads, that was people booking me on podcasts, like all kinds of stuff. All the software that I had trying to piece everything together. We can now run the whole thing on less than $1,000 a month.
Wow. That's a
And
huge slashing.
so that's a huge, huge slashing. And then without Facebook ads, by the way, and we can talk about that later on how we built that. We might add in ads later, but we don't have to. And then the second thing that happened was I slashed my workload by about 84%.
I'm raising my hand. I want that.
Everybody wants that, right?
Yes. And I'm sure all of our audience wants the same thing.
Yeah, so I started talking about this publicly because we are our own guinea pigs. Like we don't teach anything until we've thoroughly tested it on ourselves. So I'm like, okay, I've got data now. Now I've got data to share. Now I can sit here and say, okay, I slashed 84% of my workload. I still have a multi six-figure business. I took my business from 80 to 90% outbound sales, which was going out into the marketplace, which if you're below six figures, it just is what it is. You got to learn how to do it. And then I took my business from 80 to 90% outbound and that was in 2022 to in 2023, over 60% of my business came in inbound.
Inbound. Nice.
And the majority of the leads were being worked automatically. So that was cool. And then I can also tell you from life experience that we stress tested the hell out of this thing, because while we were building this stuff out and testing it in 2023, we were traveling extensively. We were moving to another country. We had a death of a parent that we were dealing with at the same time. We had to find a place to live in 10 days. Then the place needed to get renovated. So not only have we tested it in terms of data, life also stress tested it because
That's the biggest test of them all.
and that's the biggest test of them all, because we were not able to work at 100% capacity like we're both accustomed to. Maybe we were at 10%
Wow.
because everything we had going on around us, life was putting a lot of pressure on us. Still a six-figure business. The majority of it was automated, slash 84% of my task load. 60% of the business came in inbound. And I can go into the specific areas where they came from if you want me to. But all of this to say, like, now the mission has always been the same. It just looks in different ways. You got to learn how to sell, because that's the only thing that makes money move. Period, point blank, end of story. And everything in life is a negotiation. And then eventually, once you nail that, you still got to keep the sales going, but you have to change your mindset from I'm constantly producing and hustling to now I'm building something that can run whether I'm working or not.
Yes. That's the whole goal, right? But we don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to create the mindset around that, right?
Yeah, that's actually one of the biggest struggles we see with most of our clients. Actually,
Mhm.
like, now we focus on a lot of technology and things like that. But even at every level, when I was teaching people how to sell, which, we still do it. Now you can get those trainings on demand, all the sales trainings I've been doing since 2017, which teaches you like the people side of things and how to have
Right.
these conversations and how to optimize things in your favor. Let's put it that way in the conversation, because most people do the opposite. They optimize it in the favor of the other person. And that usually does not lead to money in the bank or
Right.
respect in any
Right.
regard. So even at that stage, it was always people getting in their heads about, like, no, making money needs to be hard. Like, the most mind-boggling thing I would hear is I would teach people how to have a conversation with another human being, a business conversation, and they would be like, wait, that's it? It's that simple? It's that
Right.
direct? And I'm
Yes.
like, "Yeah, what the hell did you think this was?" Because everybody thinks it's, like, very manipulative and,
Right.
hide the ball, and some people teach sales that way, but they're not very good at it, and even if they do make money, they probably can't sleep at night because it's so
Right.
complicated. So that the simplicity of it would boggle people's minds, and then now that we do a lot of technology, where we help people automate a lot of that stuff. Um, it's a similar thing, but they get stuck in the mindset. That's the biggest thing, where it's like, wait a minute, I've been producing so much for so long, and that's where I get a lot of my value, and that's where I feel safe with the money, that I
Right.
know I can bring it in no matter what. And now you're telling me to shift gears and let robots do the work, or other people do the work, or the algorithm do the work. Well, what does that mean about me? Or, like, they don't believe it can be done, or they don't believe it can be that simple. And a lot of it is because and this is showed up in both areas, and I learned this as a financial writer. No one has a good relationship with money or how to make it.
Right. Right. From
So
whatever
that's what gets in
perspective,
our way.
whatever we're bringing into it, there's always something.
There's always something, and it always goes down to how we look at money and how we look at ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. Awesome. Well, this has been really great. So I want to take a quick break because I know there's a lot. You've already shared so much great information, but there's so much more we want to get into. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. So hang tight, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. This is Christy and Amanda, and I am having, like, I've got a whole page of notes already, and so many questions I want to ask her. And first thing I want to dive into is the sales process, right? Because you said there's steps to it, and I think we sometimes make it more complicated than it needs to be. So can you, Amanda, like, shed some light on this whole sales process step
Yeah, so
situation?
this is really interesting. I was just teaching somebody this yesterday. So what happens is most people don't understand the steps to a sales process. It's almost like a dance or a courting, or when you're dating somebody, there's steps to the process.
Yep.
And sometimes what happens is people have no idea what the steps are, so they don't know where they are in the process or what's going on with the other person they're negotiating with,
Mhm.
or because they don't know what the steps are, they're constantly trying to skip ahead. And I can give
Mm.
2 examples of what that looks like, and then I can get into the process.
I
So
see.
if
I
we
think we see that a lot where people just skip ahead. They're like, dive into the sale or dive into the ask. A
dive
lot of
into the
online
sale
stuff.
too soon, and the craziest part is that they also do it with their automations and their funnels.
Yes.
Yeah, they also do it with the automations and the funnels. We were just helping a client with that the other day. I'm like, we're trying to build out these automations or funnels, but you're jumping too soon in the sales process in the automations. And she
Yeah.
goes, "Holy crap, that's why I'm not getting any calls booked." And I'm like, "Yes, you have to do this step first."
Okay. All right. So let's shed some light on his
So
steps.
I teach a 5-step process, right?
Okay.
That 5-step process is engage.
Mhm.
Engage basically means either, if you're in the beginning of business, you're probably doing a lot more outbound sales and going out into the marketplace. So it's engaging, it's getting in front of people. It could be your social media, and that brings in inbound leads to you, but there's some way of engaging the marketplace.
Mhm.
Um, the second part is educate. So that's when we're moving into the qualifying portion. A
Okay.
lot of times what happens to people is they end up giving their time, their brain, and their energy away for free or almost nothing because they're talking to the right people because they're not qualifying
Right.
and they're not setting those boundaries. So that's the educate portion. You're educating and what a lot of people don't realize in the qualifying process is it's not just about you determining whether or not they're a good fit for you. It also helps them become more educated on the topic.
Yes.
From there, we go into enroll. Most people know that enrollment call, closing call, demo call, depending on what you're selling and what industry you're in. It can go by multiple names. In that, in and of itself, there's tons of skills people need to understand. They need to understand how to set the tone from the beginning. I teach something
Mhm.
called a pre-close intention to make sure you get a decision that day.
Mhm.
Um, I teach stuff like, again, you go into finding what the urgency is. Again, you do more discovery questions and qualifying to find out what's going on. You got to know how to pitch the product, talk about the money with the product, close the deal, handle objections, and then go back to closing the deal.
Mm. Wow.
That's just in one part of the sales process, and I've been
Yeah.
teaching that part since 2017. And that's the part that I would practice the most with our clients so that they would really understand what was going on in that dance of the closing call.
Yeah.
And then from there, we teach evaluate. So that's basically follow up if you did not close the deal. A lot of people are like, I don't want to follow up. I don't want to seem annoying. I hear this freaking stuff all the time. You're not being annoying. You're doing these people a favor, and you just have to know how to do it properly to get a response and not annoy them.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
And then the final one is endorse. And that's the part of the sales process that's okay, well, now you're actually delivering to clients. You have to follow up with clients so you can resell them or they send you referrals because it's
Mhm.
easier to do that than do more marketing,
Yeah.
and also referral partners.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
that's the 5-step process that I teach. I've been teaching that since 2017. What I've been teaching since 2017 is essentially like the people side of it, how to have these conversations. Why when you follow up, do you want to say this and not that?
Okay. That
What
makes
does
sense.
that look like in a process? And then now what we do is a lot of that we've learned how to automate it.
Really.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's funny, I have images. I'll send them to you after here, right? Because I teach this a lot in one of our webinars. So we have a webinar where you can see the images that I'm talking about of what this process looks like manually and what it
Okay.
looks like automated. So if this process was automated, what it would look like is engage would be a lot more like social media, YouTube SEO, or referral partner sending leads your way. So instead of it being outbound sales where you're constantly going out into the marketplace, sending those 100 DMs a day, you
Mhm.
switch it and basically you start running it like a machine where leads are coming to you. So
Okay.
that's what engage would look like. If we were on educate, that would look like your funnel, basically doing most of the sales work for you and doing
Okay.
the selling and the qualifying and the booking of the call. Like, we get
Okay.
calls booked automatically with the
Right.
funnel without us having to do very much. Straight from YouTube into the machine, we call it the Effortless Sales Engine. The engine does the work, we get calls booked,
Love it.
basically. Enroll, if you're selling low ticket products, you could probably just sell them off of email or funnels. I've definitely done that. We do a lot of high ticket stuff. Our stuff starts at $10,000. Most of our clients sell high ticket stuff. So that usually still requires a phone call or some sort of a conversation. But at
Yeah.
that point, it's basically like, I'm sold. I've seen you everywhere. You have followed up with me more than anybody else has. You care about me more than anybody else has. I just have
Yeah.
a couple of questions. Here's my credit card.
Right, right. I love that because you've already created the trust. You've already helped them identify what they need and their pain point, and that you can provide the solution. And so it's just a matter of having that conversation for the final, like, yes, I'm in kind of a
Pretty
situation.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have a client now in our Effortless Sales Engine program that went through that whole process. She found us on YouTube. She'd been
Okay.
followed up with by our engine for 4 months. She saw us on 2 referral partner webinars that by the time we got her on the phone, it was basically a formality and she was ready to pay.
Love it. Love it.
So there's that. And then evaluate if you don't close the deal. It's the same thing. The same way that you automated the front part of the follow-up, you can automate the back part if you really need to. And we
Mhm.
figured out ways of doing that. And then endorse, there's elements of it that you can automate. Like for example, you do a really good job at the automating of the endorsing. You actually do a really good job at this because when I signed up for your podcast, I saw that you were already, well, most people don't do this. This is why I'm bringing it up.
Oh,
You were already kind of priming the stage for either this person could be a potential client or it could be a potential referral partner.
yes. Yeah.
You were already setting the stage for that. Most people don't do that, but that would be a great example of systematizing and automating the endorse portion.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm doing one thing right.
Yeah.
Ah, love it. All right. Well, so this is really good. So this is the automation This is like, it just seems so complicated, but I know it's not. Like, this is not complicated. It's just because you're breaking it down, and we need to break it down so we follow the right process to bring that prospect through the journey. And then something you mentioned earlier, we're not selling to ourselves, we're selling to them. So we really need to meet them from where they're at and talk to them with their language, right?
Oh, yeah. I have a really great example about this from another
Okay.
brand that we have because we got in trouble on TikTok.
Oopsie. Oopsie.
Oopsie, oopsie. So, I live in Mexico. Like I mentioned, we were moving to another country. We travel a lot. We'd like to do this digital nomad expat life. It's something that we wanted to experiment with. And when I started sharing this stuff on social media because people were curious, our DMs just started blowing up with questions. We cannot go a week without somebody asking us, hey, if you're an American citizen, but you live in Mexico, how do taxes work? Or like, how do you get residency? Or like this or that, or digital nomad visas. And I was like, okay, we can't talk about this on the main podcast because it would like muddy the message. I
Mhm.
think we need to start another podcast just specific because the questions are just so much. I can't be in here all day in the DMs answering these questions.
Right.
So we started another brand called Entrepreneur Expat, which is basically just another entry point into the engine because a lot of people like us and follow us because they want to do what we're doing. So we're like,
Yep.
great, we'll do a brand just on the digital nomad piece of things and then get them into the engine and the engine does the work. Um, but one of the things that we started testing it in October of last year, we started testing it with a couple of test episodes, got thousands of views on the test because it's such a niche topic. It's kind of trending right now. People are really into it. And we pissed a lot of people off on TikTok because we were using the term expat.
Okay.
American expats. And what people were bringing up on TikTok, and they're actually 1000% correct, and I agree with them, is that American and Canadian and European expats, they're not expats, they're immigrants. They're immigrating to other countries. They're starting new lives in other countries. They should be calling themselves immigrants, but they don't. They call
Okay.
themselves expats. And I said, I 1000% agree with you, but this podcast is for Americans, Canadians, and Europeans, and they're not using the term. They're not Googling how to immigrate to another country.
Right. Right. I get
I
that.
agree with you. I just got my residency in Mexico. I had to go through an immigration process just like everybody else at
Mhm.
the immigration office. I have no problem saying that. I 100% agree. But that's not what the audience is Googling. So how would I ever get their attention?
Right. Right. Yeah, they're not resonating. They don't see themselves in that way. So they're not necessarily going to connect with your message if that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, like no one's Googling, community of American immigrants in Guadalajara, Mexico. Like no one's doing that. What they are Googling is American expats in
Expats. Yeah.
Guadalajara, Mexico.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So how does this translate to having a sales conversation? right? Because
Yeah.
when we have a sales conversation, we need to recognize the personality of that person and making sure that we're speaking and going through the process in a way that they're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think the main thing people need to realize, and this is where they mess everything up, is they start steamrolling the other person instead of
Mhm.
actually listening to
Listening.
them. Yeah, so in sales conversations, you should actually be doing a lot more listening than talking. Period. Point blank, end of story. Like the first half of a sales conversation is just you asking really good questions and getting all the information that you need. When you do that, the other person feels heard. And then when you have enough information, you're able to pitch the right product. Half of sales are lost because people pitch the wrong product
Hmm. Yeah, so true.
because they're not listening
Because they're not listening and they're not asking the right questions
and they're
and
not
they're
going deep
going
enough.
into it with their agenda.
Yep.
And that's why they feel salesy. And that's why they maybe avoid sales is because they feel that they're doing it to serve themselves instead of stopping and asking questions and seeing how I can help that person and meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, there's something that I would teach, and I still teach it. You guys can go find it on demand, persuadetoprofit.com. But there's this lesson that everybody loved, which was their favorite when it came to understanding this. Because I started to realize that people would go to extremes in sales conversations. They would either be way too passive and not ask for the business and not do what they were supposed to, again, because they were in their heads, or they would get way too aggressive and want to fight people because again, they were in their heads. Like somebody
Yeah,
like on the passive side, somebody would give an objection, like, I can't afford it. I'm like, it's okay, it's fine. I'll send you everything. You can get back to me when you're ready. Like, no, that's not how
right,
you close a deal. Or on the aggressive side, somebody would be like, well, I can't afford it. And they'd be like, what do you mean you can't afford it? Like they would just like start like going in
right, right.
because we're human and it's what we do. And I'm like you're gonna let $4,000 stand in the way of the rest of your life. Like people would get really intense and really aggressive. And I'm
Yeah,
like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's like back this up a little bit, guys. And I would do it from like a fun, laughing, like it's just humans being humans and getting in their head kind of a thing.
yes,
Um, so I would teach the difference between passive, assertive, and aggressive. So the passive people are afraid of being assertive because they think they're being aggressive.
right. And
But
there's a difference between
there's a
assertive
huge
and
difference. So
yeah.
when you're being passive, it means that you're valuing the other person more than you value yourself,
Mm,
which is not going to work in sales and negotiation and business and relationships and nothing in life. When you're being aggressive, it means that you value yourself more than the other person that you're talking to, which again doesn't work with much of anything in life. It's like, what is it, bull in a china shop kind of
uh-huh,
vibe, or that's when people get really manipulative and slimy and gross. And
right.
assertive means that you value yourself and the other person equally.
Okay. It's almost like you want to have a win-win
It's
result.
a win-win. All sales
Totally.
and negotiation is win-win, and everybody goes into it like a win-lose.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, because if you're going into the conversation and if you're in that passive mindset and you feel, okay, if I win, that person's losing, that makes you not want to keep doing it. But if you realize that you can go into the conversation and make sure that you're helping that person win while you win at the same time, then why wouldn't you want to keep doing it? Like, because it's just a way for everybody to continue to bring great energy around. Because
Exactly. It's a double
yeah,
blessing. Some people say it's a double blessing. I agree.
okay, love that. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So this has been really great. So much information. I've got like now a page and a half of notes. Great, great information. Is there anything else? I know you have an amazing resource that you want to share with our audience. But before we talk about what that is there anything else you want to touch base on?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's if you don't really understand sales or sales process, I see a lot of people skipping ahead in business where they're like, oh, let me automate. We were having this conversation with someone yesterday, right? Like she's at a stage where she needs to just make money now, like bring money in the door, like in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And she's trying to skip ahead, being like, no, I need the systems and the automations and I need all this stuff. I'm like, no, you need to learn what you're selling and actually move through a sales process with people and get money. So I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
what happens a lot of times is that people try and skip ahead. So if you're in a stage where you haven't even hit six figures yet, you are in that one-to-one sales process talk to people, get the data, learn the skills, really nail it, figure out what this process looks like organically. You
Okay.
nail that and get it to 6 figures, then we can start talking about systematizing and
Mm,
automations, because then we can actually make them work. And what
that
I
is so
find
good.
happens a lot online is that people try and skip ahead because they're trying to avoid the discomfort of
That's
sales.
it. And you're totally hit the nail on the head. And I was going to say that is they're getting into all of these other activities as a way to avoid what they should be doing, which is
Oh
having
yeah,
that
and
sales
we see it at
conversation.
6 and 7 and 8-figure levels too, just in
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say I can kind of relate to that as well. I love my building things. I love getting in and creating these funnels and these landing pages and workflows and all that stuff. And I find myself that I have to kind of take a step back and say, all right, is this what I should be really doing, or should I be doing something else? And usually I'm diving into that because I'm avoiding sales conversations.
Pretty much, right? And
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of people do that. And we see this at 7-figure levels or 6 and 7 when they have tech that's already working for them and they just want to go
Yeah.
like change all their tech all of a sudden. We're like, why? This thing's already working. You just need to
Let
go
me
sell
redo
some
my
stuff. Let
website.
me
Let
just
me
redo
create all
everything. And
new
it's like,
photos.
why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
I know.
So that's the number one thing I would say. I see people trying to skip ahead all the time or
Yeah.
distract themselves from actually doing sales activity. And another good point, because you just brought this up,
Mhm.
it's learning the difference between what is, the short term marketing and sales thing that's going to constantly bring money in the door now, which is usually social media, DMs, and conversations, and how
Yep.
to balance that out with midterm marketing strategy and sales strategy and long-term marketing
Mm,
and sales strategy, and
yeah.
figuring out what that balance looks like. And the balance depends on where you are in business.
Gotcha. Huh. Wow. Lots of good stuff. Lots of things to think about. What is the free gift you're going to bless our client or our clients, our audience with?
So, the free gift that I have for you guys is you can get some of my best sales scripts. So, remember, I said that I would break things down line by line for all our clients. Well, you're going to get a lot of the sales scripts that I would give to my clients. They
Oh,
usually had to pay, a lot of money
love that.
to get their hands on this, and you can get some of them for free. So we're going to give Christy her own link so that we can track everything that's going on, because we're really big on that right now.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to give her her own special link just for your audience so that you guys can get your hands on these scripts. We'll throw in a couple extra ones just specifically for your audience, and they can start using that. Those scripts cover the initial conversation, so the engage part, the educate part, and it also covers the enrolling part.
Perfect. Love that. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. I really appreciate your time, Amanda. I had fun. How about you?
I had a blast. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I just love
Yeah.
blowing people's minds when it comes to sales, because then they're like, wait a minute, so it's not what I thought it was. It's not anything like you thought it was.
Uh, yeah, and I know we didn't really get into this a lot. You mentioned it a little bit, but in the previous conversations, one of the things that really impressed me is you watch the data. Like you are a data person. You do the research. You don't like just go out and do stuff. You make sure that it's going to work so you can duplicate it over and over again with your clients. And I love that because I think so many people out there and so many experts and coaches just go out and just start doing things without knowing that the results are coming. They're just like wishing it's going to come, but you already know that your systems and processes are proven because you've got the data to show it.
We've got the data to show it, and it's interesting that you bring this up because I've become more of a data person over the last couple years. That's influence of Justin, because he's the real data
Ah,
person, and I'm
gotcha.
more of like the creative talk to people person. So sometimes there's
Ah,
a little bit of
well,
clashing.
that's a good balance, though.
It's a
Right?
very good balance. And I realized that I just found data in different ways than he does, right? So I would find data by actually having conversations with people and testing stuff out and tweaking it and being like, did I make money off of that? Like, did I get what I wanted out of that? And then with the engine piece of things, with the automations and the social media and the marketing, that's more like in the weeds, numbers kind of data. Like on Monday, this is a great story. On Monday, we're like, wait a minute, we just noticed that there's a broken part in the engine. Let's just like fix this one thing right here that's not
Uh-huh.
working. And by the next day, we were already getting calls booked from that one
Wow.
switch that we
Wow.
made. Or he was, in the weeds, and he realized like, that sales script has gotten like 40,000 hits on it, that one
Wow.
page. from
Wow.
like SEO and things over the time. I didn't know that until 2 days ago. And he's like, we better make sure this thing is right and tight and squeaky clean and
Yeah,
working
it's getting
well
that
because
much.
people that traffic is going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Love that. Talk about really quick before we end, your effortless sales engine. Share a little bit about what that system, that process, the program is.
Yeah, so Effortless Sales Engine is what we teach now. So it's basically, helping our six-figure clients stop being the bottlenecks in their businesses because they've been hustling and grinding and doing the sales and doing the things they're supposed to do to get
Mm,
to six figures, but now they're exhausted and their business takes 80 hours a week and
yes.
they want to burn everything down. So what we cover in Effortless Sales Engine is three things. So number one, how do we build more leverage into your offers? How do we stop trading so much time for money? Depending on the business, that could look like different things. So
Okay.
we can spend most of the time, right? Because we have to buy back their time first. Then we start building this engine. What do these sales follow-ups look like? What do these campaigns look like? What do the text messages say? We build it with them and we customize it based on their own business. And the whole thing is done in 12 weeks. And then
Wow.
once the engine is, well, remember, because we tested all the data, we already know what works and what doesn't. So we can really streamline this and compress it into 12 weeks and know it'll get done. It won't take them 2 years like it took us. Um, and then when that's done, we teach what I call my inbound lead generation trifecta,
Okay.
which is basically how I built this system to bring me inbound leads over time. And the system includes YouTube/ search engine optimization. We can just put the two in the same sentence,
Yeah.
which is how do we use video? How do we set up those videos? How do we, use the right search terms that people are looking for and that grows over time and you let the algorithm do its thing? How do we do podcasting, starting your own to have conversations and
Mm,
also getting on other people's stages? So for example, I'm keynoting an event with 100 people at 4 o'clock this afternoon because it's easier to do that than have 100 individual conversations. So we do that. And then in addition to that, we teach them how to build referral partner networks
okay.
so that referral partners are constantly sending new leads their way. So
Yeah.
essentially, stop trading so much time for money. Let's build in the automations so you can handle the new lead flow that you're about to get. And let's explode this lead flow in more leveraged ways that don't include so much of your one-to-one time and energy.
I love it. This is great. I It's going to be a great resource for so many people. And I'm thinking of some of my clients that I think that would be a great resource for. So,
Yeah, send them on over, Christy. Send them
yeah.
on over.
All
We work
right.
real well with referral partners. And you could be great for, some of our clients who are not ready for that yet. 'Cause
Yes.
we used to
Yeah.
teach putting offers together and filling it up and all that. And that's great. There's millions of great people who could do that. Christy's one of them. We just realized, wow, there's this really big other problem in a sector of the market that all the advice you get at six figures is like hire more people or just
Yeah.
grind harder. But
No,
like
but it's
that's
so,
not right. We can't do this. We got to move from
no.
hustling to building. And we realize that right now at this stage, it's to help people build so they can get their time back and build things that are more sustainable.
Awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time and sharing all of your great resources with our audience. It's been a lot of fun. So I want to encourage everybody to connect with Amanda. Her contact information will be in the show notes, as well as a link to get her free resource, her best sales scripts ever resource. Because what we want to do is we want to encourage and empower you all to increase your sales, right? Figure out how you can bring more money in the door so you can help more people and more importantly, create more freedom in your life. So again, thanks everybody. And we will see you on the next show. If you like our Mastery Unleashed podcast, please go to iTunes and follow us. This is a new process that they have. We need you to follow us. If you've rated us, if you've given us a review, we love you. Thank you. But please go and follow us because it's a new way for them to track a podcast's, you know, what is the right word? Like popularity. So we definitely need more followers, and we appreciate everything you do to keep supporting us. So thanks everybody, and most importantly, thanks Amanda.
Thank you for having me. Make sure to follow everybody. Christy's amazing. And she has all these guests that just drop bombs and drop gems. You could take notes forever.
Yes, awesome. All right, thanks everybody. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.